West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to welcome one and all to this morning's gathering. Whether you are present in the Orchard Park location or farther afield. With the not-so-local freezing rain in central Canada and many other locations, maybe more are attending from home today. Homes that are not only across Ontario, but across Canada, and south of the border across the United States, and over the seas across the United Kingdom, and as far east as Africa. Welcome. West Hill is located in Treaty 20 in the area of the Williams Treaties of 1923. These are the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and were previously occupied by the Seneca and Huron-Wendat First Nations. I believe that most of us are unaware that while Indigenous peoples own, occupy, or use 1/4 of the world's surface area, they safeguard 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. And they hold vital ancestral knowledge and expertise on how to adapt, mitigate, and reduce climate and disaster risks. As treaty people, we support the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples under Section 10 tells us that Indigenous peoples shall not be forcibly removed from their lands or their territories. No relocation shall take place without the free, prior, and informed consent of the Indigenous peoples concerned, and after agreement on just and fair compensation, and, where possible, with the option of return, because control by Indigenous peoples over developments affecting them and their lands, territories, and resources will enable them to maintain and strengthen their institutions, cultures, and traditions, and enable their development in accordance with their aspirations and needs. First reading of 3 is by Michelle Lehman, who describes herself as a single woman in my 30s, a life blogger, sharing my own experiences and mistakes, sharing life's lessons I've learned and how they help me embrace my singleness. The following is an excerpt from her writing entitled, Changing the Consensus of Singles. As a single woman in my 30s, I have learned to embrace myself and my singlehood. I learned that life is more than marrying and having kids. While that may be one person's calling, it may not be another's. And that's okay. No one should be made to feel bad or ashamed about their relational status. Being single doesn't mean a person less worthy or as contributed member of society. It doesn't mean I'm lonely or desperate for a relationship. My relationship status is my choice, not my misfortune. Never let anyone discourage you of your singleness. The second reading by Nora Ephron who was an American journalist, writer, and filmmaker. She is best known for the patron saint. She's known as the patron saint of the romantic comedy. She wrote and directed classics like You've Got Mail and When Harry Met Sally, which is widely considered one of the best romantic comedies of all times. It seemed to me that desire to get married, which I regret to say I believe is a basic and primal in women, is followed almost immediately by an equally and basic primal urge, which is to be single again. The third and final reading by Simone Sherry, who is a clinical psychologist and professor in the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience at Dalhousie University. Being single increases connectedness. Single people are not necessarily isolated. In general, singles often have stronger social networks. Their networks tend to be more expansive, with singles more actively involved in their broader community. Moreover, not only do they have more connections, but single people are more likely to maintain the social relationships that they have by reaching out and depending on connections. Offered as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in its light.
Good morning. Dr. Peter McGraw is an author, a behavioral economist, and a professor at the University of Colorado Boulder. In his book, Solo, Peter brings insight to cultivating a rich, remarkable life uniquely one's own while forming fulfilling relationships as a single person. Did you ever witness a family member or a friend, or perhaps it was yourself, who was asked, "Do you have a special someone in your life? When are you going to tie the knot?" And at the end of the conversation, were you feeling lesser than a person in a coupled relationship? I was nearing my 30th birthday when I experienced this feeling of judgment and being less than my friends who were married, not fully whole. I felt this judgment deeply. But the funny thing is, when I look back on it now, I knew that deep in my heart, I actually felt true to myself, uncompromised, and smart. Peter asks us to check our own personal social norms and expectations about singlehood. This talk helped me do just that. It shifted my personal perspective, something I feel I needed to do for the sake of my single daughter. Peter McGraw sees the rise of the single population not just as a bug, but as a feature of progress, especially for women. He says, the future is about options, not prescriptions. He says, let's build a world where single living is put on par with married living. Not better, not worse, just a different path to a fulfilling life. And Maya Angelou said it well. You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anyone. So here is Dr. Peter McGraw on why it's okay to be single. And his alternative title is Stop Telling Single People to Get Married. Just a few words to tie this up. I think it's always a good day when you learn one thing new. Before this talk, for example, I didn't know the origin of the term spinster. I learned that the term was coined after talented, independent women found a way out of actually a form of slavery in business contracts, domestic business contracts. The term spinster, as I always heard it, it should never have been used in this derogatory way that it became, the reference to women who were unwanted or undesirable, but rather it should be a reference to smart, talented women of the past who were trailblazers of freedom and choice. And I liked how Peter recognized this. I liked how he talked about being single in a world built for couples in a very personal way as a single man. And while the rise of single living is really the rise of women, it is a sign of progress for everyone. Those are my thoughts about, some of the thoughts about this talk, and I just wanted to also add the thanks to Scott and Babette for finding the perfect music and singing the lyrics so nicely to punctuate the meaning of this talk. So thank you.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.